Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Anton and welcome back to Iron United's YouTube channel. David Moyes takes charge of his first ever West Ham home game as former champions Leicester City visit the London Stadium on Friday night under the lights. Leicester City's new boss, Claude Puels, however you pronounce his name, brings a mid-table performing team who under the new boss has won one, lost one and drew one game. Meanwhile, our beloved West Ham have not won a game since September and face a gruelling winter congested fixture list with the likes of Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal to just name a few. So yeah, guys, welcome back. I'm Anton, below me is Dan, and to my right, depending on how you're looking at the camera, is a face that you don't recognise because there is no face there. It's a well-known, in-the-know ExWHU employee. X, how you doing, mate? You okay?
Very well, Anton. Yourself?
Yeah, good, mate. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
No problem.
Excellent. And Dan, how you doing, mate? You okay?
Yeah, all good, Danny, mate.
Yeah, good. So, guys, listen, we've come off not a great loss against Watford. We've done our review show. So, let's just go straight into some of the questions. And next, we're just going to throw this one right at you. The players' reactions and Moyes' reaction from the Watford game. What do you know?
I've had a couple of texts and stuff. I must be honest, I've tried to avoid it a little bit since then because of the negativity. But the texts I have had was obviously everyone was very disappointed, as you would be. They fancied their chances against Watford, and perhaps if a number of players had taken their chances and some of our defending was better, then we would have taken the points. But I just think a general feeling of disappointment and a eagerness to correct it against Leicester.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there was a lot of positivity seen from the media team, from the West Ham website, and we've seen quite a lot of drills. What's your take on the game, X? Like, what was your individual opinion on the game?
I don't. It was a bit of a mixture, really. I mean, at the end of the day, if we'd taken our chances, I mean, we're talking 2 chances for Kouyate, particularly the second one. If he'd taken that, if Arnautovic had taken his, I know it's all ifs and buts, but really they should have scored both of those chances. Lanzini's off the line, and then Reed's terrible defending for the second goal, which was from a handball, if I remember correctly as well. I mean, there was a few turning points in the game that could have gone in our favour. I thought some of the individual performances were terrible. Yeah. I thought a number of players were way below what they should have been, particularly in a manager's first game in charge, which usually lifts the players. There was a number of individuals that should have a long, hard look at themselves after that match. That said, we could have got a result. So I think ultimately we've got to go into the Leicester game just almost wiping the slate clean and just going for it. I'm just thinking what happened at Watford happened. This is a new game and just going full out for that.
Absolutely. Dan, I mean, we've done our review show and we were very temperamental during that show. So a couple of players that have come up and again, listen, we'll talk about social media in a minute, but a player that's been kind of called out a lot this season, and particularly last game, was Cheikhou Kouyate. What's your opinion on Cheikh, Dan?
He's not having the best time of it at the minute. I'm a big fan of Cheikh, box to box player. You know, he puts in a shift every single game he plays. But yeah, you know, he just doesn't look like he's got that intensity and energy that he had when he first joined. You know, the first couple of seasons he was with us, he was by far performing above and beyond a lot of the other players. I feel like, as well, with the way that we're playing the midfield at the minute, I'm not sure if he really knows when he should be getting forward, when he should be staying back. It all seems a bit confusing. Maybe that's impacting his form to some extent.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of stuff breaking this week, or we don't know if it's breaking, we don't know if we're putting two together. There was a lot of rumours kicking about that the agent's potentially pushing for a move for Kouyate away. I mean, is that not just what agents are designed to do and what they're brought in to do? Is that something we need to really read into?
Agents are designed to do that, and agents are a real problem in modern day football. Kouyate's agent is more of a problem than most other players' agents. He is saying things because he played well for Senegal before the Watford game. He's using that as a leverage to try and get Kouyate some attention from bigger clubs that they believe he should be playing for. So there is substance to it, and this isn't the first time that it's happened either. For me, I agree exactly with what Dan said about Kouyate. 2 or 3 years ago, the guy was brilliant, like head and shoulders one of the best midfielders in our team, and possibly in a club of our stature. I thought he was absolutely superb. This last year particularly, he is a shadow of the player he used to be, and I agree, perhaps the tactics and the midfield setup don't help him, but he almost looks like a player that has lost his basic skill. I mean, that second chance was just amateurish how he handled that, and often his passing is poor, and I don't know what's happened to him. And personally, if his agent wants to talk a move and get him out of the club, if 25 million came in for him in January, I would take it.
Yeah, I mean, is this the sort of money that potentially we could be looking at? Well, I'll tell you what, we won't go into that. We'll bring that into it later on. So we've talked about Kouyate, players that are kind of. I mean, if you're Kouyate and you're looking at the midfield, you've got Pedro Obiang, you've got Mark Noble. What do we know of that situation, or Dan? I'll throw this one over to you, Dan, first. I mean, you don't get excited when you look at those 3 midfielders in the park together.
Well, no, we talked about this in our review, didn't we? And how slow that midfield looked. No energy in there, which is quite surprising when you're thinking about Kouyate. Lack of energy, because he's always been the sort of player that gets box to box and busts a gut for 90 minutes, but there was none of that. Obiang thought he was Xabi Alonso from 10 years ago at times, trying to ping passes that he's not capable of, and it just lacks energy at the moment, that midfield. It's not exciting to watch at all.
Do you think that's something that Kouyate looks at when he kind of looks at the team sheet and he thinks, man, I've got 2 other players that are pretty much trying to do the same job I'm trying to do, so he finds himself lost and he's up top with Andy Carroll at some points?
Possibly. I mean, the other midfielders around him might not help things. I mean, perhaps if he was playing alongside one of them and they were more defensive and Kouyate knew he was the one to be box to box, it might help him a bit. But I agree again with what Dan said there. The midfield is just really average. Not average in terms of workload and defensiveness, but going forward, creativity-wise, there's no midfielder in there that you would think is going to get a ball and split the defence of a pass. I just can't see that from any of them. And back in the day, West Ham have had players like Ian Bishop, Isle Berkovic, someone like that in the midfield that's creative and plays through balls through. We have none of that from those 3. And in January, for me, the most essential signing I would make is a creative midfielder in there. You could play Lanzini, but Lanzini doesn't seem to feature in the central midfield for us much. But I would play him there, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely agree with you, and I think when you talk about Lanzini, you've got to think about when Lanzini does a lot of work in that midfield, he looks up, and previously, we've spoke about it before in a lot of previews and reviews, but he looked up and he used to have Dimitri Payet alongside him, and he thought, I can do a lot of this work, but I can also pass the ball to him and he can do a lot of this work. And now he looks around the team and he goes, what is going on? Now there is a lot of talk about Lanzini and January. I mean, if your name's Manuel Lanzini, you are in the Argentinian squad, you're playing for West Ham, things aren't looking that good. Are you going to be intrigued to know what's out there in January? That's over to you, X.
Well, I'd hope not. I think out of some of the players we've got, Lanzini is actually one of the more settled ones, which will work to our advantage. Obviously with Payet, we all thought he was going to stay longer than he did, so you can never say never, but I think at this point Lanzini will be at the club, and I would be shocked if he left in January. Of course, if Liverpool sell Coutinho to Barcelona and then they bid, I don't know, 50-60 million for him, we might be talking a different story, but I can't see that happening. I think Lanzini will be here in January, till to the end of the season at least.
Yeah. So a couple of players we were talking about we missed from the Watford game, where was it Antonio and who was it, Hernandez. So we are hearing potentially that Antonio might be in and around the squad this weekend. Do you know anything on that, X? I know you said you hadn't done a lot of research on it this week, but
I haven't really, to be honest, so I couldn't tell you definitively at this point, but I think there's a chance. I think IE should be back because IE was suffering from sickness, and we all know that sickness shouldn't last more than a week, so hopefully IE and Antonio will be back, and that gives Moyes, particularly as he favours wingers, a lot more options than he had against Watford.
and it's broke today, Dan, that Arnautovic hasn't broken his thumb or his wrist. I mean, how do you rate his performance, Dan, from last week? I know we spoke about it, but just a brief kind of a point on his performance.
It's funny as well, because in our little group chat that we've got, there was a few lads saying that they didn't really think he played all that well, but I thought he was probably one of the more positive players in that game. I thought he was growing into it as time went on, and the minute that he went down with that wrist injury, we all thought it was a lot worse than it actually was, and then he went off, and I was actually gutted, because I actually thought if there was one player there that was trying, busting the gut, closing the ball down, trying to get forward, trying to create stuff, Arnautovic was that man. I thought it was the best game to date, I think, that we've seen, of him in a West Ham shirt. I know we can't really compare it to much because of his sending off and not really being fancied after, because he was not really informed by Bilic, but to date that was his best performance. It's good to hear that the injury's not as bad, because maybe he'll get another chance. At the end of the day, he just needs to play. He needs to be playing games. And he needs to get his work rate up, and hopefully then he can push on and give us some better performances.
What's been your opinion on Arnautovic from his start? I mean, he's not had the best of starts at West Ham, really, has he?
No, I think he hasn't, and I think I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but I agree again totally with what Dan said there. It was his best game for me. I thought he was actually looking the most dangerous he has been. He was working hard, and he actually looked like he was determined to play well, which I hadn't thought before. I've heard that he's had problems in the training on the training pitch with Bilic before. He's shown a bit of attitude and had got on the wrong side of Bilic. Perhaps Moyes came in, as I know he has done, and said to Arnautovic and a few other players, look, what happened before happened. This is a new start for you, and he wanted to prove the new manager, and I actually thought he was doing quite well. Again, as Dan said, we're not got much to compare it on with his previous performances, and to be honest, anything was going to be better, but I think he did show glimpses of the player that we paid 25 million for.
Yeah, and I think we did see, I mean, to be fair to Arnautovic, when he was about to come off, he was signalling over to the bench saying, I want to stay on.
Yeah.
So I think, do you think that was a decision of Moyes to go, do you know what, no, you're coming off, like my decision? Was it a tactical decision, or was it I'm going to protect you to make sure you're not injured, because I do quite fancy you to play in the team?
Yeah, I think it was the latter, mate. I think it was a chance to protect him. I mean, it did, as we all saw. I mean, I watched the game on Sky. I don't know if you guys were at it or watched on Sky, but he looked in a lot of pain. I thought he'd broken his wrist, broken his arm, broken his thumb, whatever. I thought whatever it was going to be long term, and I guess Moyes probably thought the same and thought, well, it's not worth risking him, and maybe that was the right decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we'll come back to West Ham in a minute, and we may as well jump across to Leicester City, the former champions of the Premier League, the surprise package of the Premier League for the past, two or 3 years ago, but they're not really in the greatest of form. Dan, what do we know? For any of you guys out there, Dan has his own channel. It's a Premier League channel. He covers not just West Ham, he covers all of the Premier League. So Dan, you can give it a little plug and continue with your Leicester.
Well, Leicester are middle of the road, aren't they, at the moment? They've had a positive reaction, something we didn't have when the new boss come in. Their new managers come in, they've had a positive reaction. Personally, I think Leicester have just been unlucky. They've had to play a lot of the top sort of 6, 7, 8 teams, big games, and I just think they've been relatively unlucky, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, the weekend against City, Company should have seen red. That would have changed the way that game went. They're playing some good stuff. The thing with Leicester is the pace. It's another team that is chock-a-block with pace, and that's something we just don't have in abundance at all, and that's what hurts us every single time. And I think this is going to be an hard game, personally, on Friday night. If you think about Vardy, Mahrez, and even their fullbacks bombing on Albrighton, they've just got pace in abundance, and Gray looks like a completely different player under this new manager as well. Demarai Gray looks excellent, and it is going to be a bit of a worry.
Yeah. X, what are your thoughts on Leicester City coming to the London Stadium?
I've got to be honest, lads. I don't actually pay a huge amount of attention to the opposition nowadays, because West Ham dominates so much of my time. I literally couldn't say I'm that knowledgeable on them. I mean, what I do know is some of the players that Dan said there. Vardy worries me because of his pace and his directness, and going through balls over the top of Reed and Ogbonna or whoever the centre backs are, and him running onto them is always a threat for me. And I do worry about him. him playing against our defence. And as you say, they have got some very, very good players in there. I'd like to think on paper we are slightly stronger, but that's debatable. But at the end of the day, we've got a new manager in. Hopefully, there'll be a decent atmosphere, although I'm not sure about that. Hopefully there will be, and hopefully the team can just perform and actually rise above the previous performance and deliver this week.
Yeah, and I think something that I can add to that is the fact that a lot of opposition teams will look at West Ham and will look at how much we're present in the media for all the wrong stories and for all the wrong press, and they probably think that there's West Ham's Achilles heel. West Ham are pretty much turning around and saying the London Stadium's been a disaster, so that is their Achilles heel. We're going to go to their stadium, we're going to give it everything. And I think if there's any team coming to the London Stadium right now does fancy the chances, and in my opinion they're right for that reason. And that's why we, as you said, X, and we'll come on to it as fans, do need to get behind the team. We do need to get behind the team. It's really tough. It's tough when times are down, but we're all old enough and ugly enough to understand that we have been there before. But we'll go on to those opinions in a minute. Who would you say is the main man to watch, Dan?
What, as far as Leicester is
concerned, yeah.
Damari Gray at the moment.
Right.
He's looked like a different player under this manager. He's got pace to burn, scoring goals, assisting, getting in behind, and his link-up play with Vardy's pretty good as well. Yeah. Obviously, we know Vardy's playing quite well. Mahrez has started to show a little bit of form as well, which is worrying, but he's playing for a transfer in January. That's plain to see. But I'd actually say Damari Gray's the one to watch, and he could hurt us big time.
Let's go back on to West Ham, and tonight there's been a game in the under-23s, and you're looking at the youth players. There's a few youth players missing, so we've got Martinez, Quina, Rice, and who was the other one? Haksabanovic. He was missing. So X, is there anything to read in that, or are we putting two and two together and getting the right answer?
No, I think there is substance to it, because you've got to look at what happened with the under-23s game on Friday before the Watford game. Rice didn't play in that for a reason. I know Quina and Martinez actually did, and then featured against Watford, but I think because they were in the squad against Watford, because they're likely to be in the squad against Leicester, it's just not worth the risk playing them today. So yeah, I think you can read into that. I would expect all four to certainly be within the manager's thought processes for Friday.
Do you think, here's a good question for you then, X, and I'll ask the same question to yourself, Dan, do you think Moyes has got the balls to change it up so much that we're going to see a massive surprise on Friday night?
My worry is that I know full well that he spoke to Carroll and said that he sees Carroll as a very important figure in his team. He sees him as a senior player and a team that he wants to build around, because
look at Dan's face there, X. Look at Dan's face.
Yeah, I know. And Dan will know more about Everton and Moyes' set up there. But from what I remember about them, they like to have wingers and a big man in the box, and therefore Carroll would suit that. And so for me, I think I would be surprised. I think he should drop Carroll. I think he should drop Carroll and play Sakho and possibly Martinez. He's got to mix up the art. I would drop Carroll, but whether he will or not, I'm not sure. I don't know if he will.
What do you think, Dan?
I agree with X, to be honest. He's quite predictable. We all know what Moyes is well known for. Look at his time when he had Fellaini at both Everton and United. It's that big man who's good in the air, and I think Carroll kind of ticks all the boxes for that man that Moyes likes in the box. It's just the problem we've got at the moment is that we don't have that service. You know, like, it's easy for me to sit here with you, Ant, when we do these videos week in, week out, and slag off Andy Carroll, but you know, I have to be fair at times, and he hasn't had the service, has he, this season? He has struggled for that. But I would a lot like X, I would like to see him change it up. You know, I know there's a lot being said about Sakho. He doesn't want to be at the club and all the rest of it. But Moyes did come out and said the slate has been, you know, cleaned. Everybody's got a fresh start, and maybe this is an opportunity for Sakho to maybe prove his worth. If not, Martinez, he deserves a chance. So you say each and every week, and how much you want to see Martinez given a chance in that team, and it could be some fresh impetus.
Yeah, I do. I mean, God, there's a strong different opinion on Andy Carroll throughout the club, and you're either form is like Marmite, you either fancy him or you don't. And for me personally, I just think I do feel sorry for any striker in our team right now, because there is no creation, they're not getting any service. You put Cheikhou in that team, yeah, he works harder, he draws back and he jumps up top, whatever, but it's still a lot of work to do when he's up there himself. Same for Hernandez, same for Carroll, same if Martinez comes in, because I just don't want these players like Martinez to come in and be left up top himself. Like when I think back to last year, and I mean, you must have seen it yourself when Zaza was up top. Now I know I'm bringing back in an old school player, but when he's given some service, because he was making really decent runs for West Ham, he can score some goals. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Zaza, but West Ham haven't been creating opportunities since Payet really has gone.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to have a look at the fact that Zaza's bagging them in Spain now. I mean, given the right service, he obviously could score. I mean, look, he was an Italian international. He was playing for Juventus. He's now gone to, is it Valencia? Who's he gone to in Spain? Valencia. And he's scoring goals there as well. So he can obviously score goals at the top level. You're right. When he was at West Ham, we just didn't give him the service. I mean, the problem for me is you got Carroll, whose obvious strength is in the air. You got Hernandez, his obvious strength is on the ground in the box. And it almost seems that we put the wrong ball into each one. So to Carroll, we play it in on the ground, and Hernandez, we whip it in the air. And I just cannot understand that. You don't have to be a football expert or even a life expert to realise that Carroll, the big man, should have the ball in the air, and Hernandez, the little fella, should have it on the ground. Yeah. And for some reason, our wingers don't seem to be able to do that. I mean, I was talking to Matthew Everington the other day in the pub with Dave, funnily enough, and we were talking about this, and he was saying that the West Ham footballers, some of them just lack such in-game intelligence, and that's the perfect example for me. That.
Do you think then, X, here's a good question for you, that West Ham struggle with egos because we've got a lot of egos in that squad?
Yeah, possibly. I think Bilic struggled with egos. I mean, everyone knows that I stood up for Bilic for a long time, but I think Bilic got towards the end where he was too friendly and too chummy with these egos, to the point where they actually took advantage of it. And then Moyes has now came in and tried to address that balance, and perhaps is almost the other extreme to it. So, but ultimately, these players do have egos, and they need to realise that they are getting paid a lot of money to do a job that all of us would love to do for a club that should mean a lot. And I just cannot understand, and I can't tolerate the egos of some of these players. Hopefully, they'll all get together, and the players that bring a good thing to the club, like Noble and Collins, will be able to persuade these players to start playing. And then when they do, they'll show the talent that they think they've got, and that we know they have got somewhere in there.
Yeah, absolutely. The referee for this weekend, Friday night's game, is Martin Atkinson. He has refereed 2 West Ham games this season. Unfortunately, they've been on the receiving end of bad defeats to Manchester United and Brighton. He's not refereed a Leicester game. He's handed out 20 yellow cards and 1 red. Something I did notice against the Watford game was, it was a temperamental game. I mean, there was tackles flying in from both sets of teams. And there's been a lot of talk again on, I've seen some crazy stupid article, someone talking about Carroll's going to kill someone with his tackles. I've seen worse tackles, to be fair. But what are your thoughts? Like, you've mentioned there, saying about how you think he fancies Carroll and he's going to give him the chance. Do you fear that Carroll's getting fed up, especially after the comments that he made about the fans in the stadium?
I think Carroll was trying to prove a point and actually go out there and be a positive influence for us. But unfortunately, I think he handled that in the complete wrong way, and so he needs to channel that aggression positively, but be careful with those flailing arms, because this isn't the first time. Yeah. Dan? Do we talk about Carroll with you? No?
Oh no, just skip me when it comes to him.
So yeah, I mean, listen, it's a big game coming up. We've got some crazy fixtures coming in. Again, do we listen to all this stuff coming up? But Joey Barton made a comment today. I think he must have said it on TalkSport, and he said that if things don't go that well come January, Moyes is out of a job. Now we do have a crazy fixture list, but X, is there anything to read within that comment? Yeah, it's Joey Barton, but I mean, what if Moyes goes on a 6 or 7 game loss? Will they release Moyes of his duties?
I don't know. I mean, it just sounds ridiculous, doesn't it, when you think about it? I mean, at the end of the day, we couldn't get a manager when things were looking like as they were when Moyes was appointed, which if we go on a loss of 6 or 7 games, they're going to be looking a hell of a lot worse than they did when Moyes came in. So if we couldn't attract a manager when Moyes came in, who on earth are we going to be able to attract in January when we're sitting at the bottom of the league? And having had 2 managers been sat before him, I would think it would be extremely unlikely for Moyes to leave then. Yeah.
And X, you pinpointed something there when you say we can't attract, and I think this is maybe where some of the fans, and we had a brief conversation beforehand, we've met up a few times, and I think this is where there's been a big massive crossover. So I'm of the strong opinion that Twitter's a minority. That doesn't mean that I don't believe the majority of West Ham fans are slightly or moving or shifting towards they're not fans of the board or fans of the manager or whatever the situation is. But do we see, or is, maybe I'm getting lost, I'm getting mixed up for words here, but I think the point I'm trying to make is, do we believe everything that's going on Twitter? What's your opinion on the abuse that fans are giving to each other, that are given to the board, that are given to the manager?
You certainly shouldn't believe everything that's on Twitter, otherwise you'd be leaving a hell of a lot of lies about me, for one. But I think you can use Twitter as definitely as a way of measuring feedback. As you say, I think it's an extreme medium, and that fans react over more so on there than they would on others. I think people sensationalise things on Twitter, because ultimately how Twitter works is that people look for followers, and you get that through RTs and likes. And at the moment, if you put something like I hate the board, blah 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 blah, and it's slightly aggressive or slightly witty, it gets more RTs and likes than it would do if you put a more reasonable, constructive argument. And sometimes I think people almost feel scared not to offer an alternative opinion because they probably see what the likes of I get when I do. But that said, you can't ignore the fact that things are turning a bit now. There does appear to be a lot more negativity towards the board, and you can't ignore that. And in some ways it's justified, because like you said, attracting a manager, we should, with our stadium and the promises that we've been given, been able to attract a better manager than David Moyes, particularly at the time, but we couldn't. And you have to question why that is. For me, what is really, really important is this Everton job. If Everton end up getting Marco Silva, having rejected them a couple of times, or Watford rejecting the offer, if they then get him after all this, the board's claims that you couldn't get a manager in January, get a manager now, are going to look really poor if Everton have persuaded one of the managers that we actually want to take them over. And that for me is a crucial thing, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah. Dan, over to you, and I know you've got strong thoughts on this.
I could be here all night though, mate. This is the trouble where the board's concerned, and I don't want to take up all the preview talking about the board again. We all know my opinion. It's the same as yours, mate. Board out. But yeah, Twitter's a funny place, isn't it? Twitter is a funny little universe of its own. Yeah. And like X has said, if you was to believe everything you read on there, then you'd probably be leading a pretty weird life, to be honest with you, because some people do put some very strange stuff on there. But a lot of it, mate, is just to get the retweets. It's a popularity contest on Twitter at the minute, and the board is a popular subject, and that's why people are doing it. So it's good to have reliable sources, like people like X, for instance, where you can get legit sort of information.
I mean, I've said before, X, and to yourself, Dan, that some of my opinions, I mean, I was a big canvasser for the board, a big fan for the board, up until maybe the game after the Manchester United game, where the Sky Sports had done that big massive thing at Upton Park, and David Sullivan had made some comments, and then it was about signing some marquee signings, and then they kind of didn't come to fruition, on top of the fact that we left our home with promises that haven't come true. I mean, it's justified, some of the negativity, not when it gets to a point of, verbally or physically trying to threaten someone. But what are your thoughts on those promises, X? Now, I know you do your own show on Pheonix FM, and we'll kind of put some links and stuff like that into it. Not that you need our help or support or anything like that, but what are your thoughts on all that kind of stuff, X?
I'm glad you asked me that, and I'm glad you made those 2 points as well. I mean, without meaning to put another plug in, I've written an article for The Guardian, which will be released tomorrow, tackling that exact same question. The thing for me, which I understand the most, ultimately, if you ask me if I'm bored in or bored out at this point in time, I'm just about bored in, but that's until the summer. I need to judge whether they appoint the top-class manager they promised and whether they give him the budget to back him. If they don't, that's just gone beyond the promises for me now. That will be it, and I cannot defend it anymore. But as you said, the two main criticisms for me, if I was to give the board some, and I have done, despite what many people think of me, is exactly what you said. Firstly, they took us away from our home, a home that we loved, a home that I love, a home that I've not got. I haven't been able to stop loving. That's why we do our events at the old place. I had a season ticket for 30 years in the same seat. I was pro moving to the stadium on the promises that I was told. Now that we're in that stadium, those promises aren't there. So that's the first one where I can understand. And the second one is exactly what you said. Promised marquee signings, promised all these world-class players to fill a world-class stadium. And again, they haven't necessarily delivered on them. For me, I'm a strong believer in the motto that you promise little and deliver more, rather than promise lots and deliver little. And unfortunately for me, the board have got it wrong a number of times on their promises, and they have to take account for those false promises, and they have to rectify it in the summer. If they don't go out and get a top-class manager and back them with a top-class budget, then I'm sorry, despite the friendships I've got, despite the links I've got, I've been a West Ham fan for 30 years. I've known the Sullivans not even that well, but I've known them for 2 years. 30 years of West Ham, unfortunately for me, would come first.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing we've always said, Dan. We've always spoken to everyone, and we've always said West Ham for us comes first. If this takes over our life to the point where we can't have our love for West Ham, this all shuts down, this all closes down. We're doing this for a voice, doing this for an opinion, and try to give you fans an opinion as much as you possibly can. Whether you're bored in, whether you're bored out, we want you on this show, so make sure you get in contact. Dan, what are your thoughts on all that kind of stuff?
Mate, honestly, it's just... differing opinions is what we need. Like if everybody was pro board or board out or whatever, then it would be boring, wouldn't it? At the end of the day, like X has got his reasons for having them just in, but he's also got his reasons for maybe wanting to differ his opinion and change his train of thought. Obviously I am bored out, but the final nail in the coffin will be for similar reasons to what X has just brought up there. Like they've been promising us all this stuff since we moved into the new ground. It was, one of the reasons why a lot of fans kind of changed their opinion from moving from the Bowling to the London Stadium, was all the promises we were given. They've not backed any of them up. Like this coming summer, if we're still in the Premier League, and it's a big if at the minute, they're going to have to back a proper manager with a big budget, bring in some quality players, and they need to change our fortunes. Otherwise, there's going to be uproar, because it's bad enough right now as it is.
I mean, Dan, you made a valid point there, and X, I'm going to put this back to you as well. Like, what happens if we do go down? Because we are in a relegation battle.
Well, we definitely are. You only have to look at the league table and the fixtures we've got coming up. I mean, for me, I don't think we will go down, but that is the positive in me. But that said, if the worst was to happen and we did go down, I actually dread to think what the consequences would be, because we'd have a half-empty stadium. We'd have a real the toxic fan atmosphere, because the board wouldn't sell. I don't think the board would still be there next year if we were in the Championship, and so you'd have all that toxicness with a half-empty stadium in the Championship. This is the sort of thing I worry about. I mean, the reason I just about bored in, as I said, was because I want to give them the summer, and also, maybe wrongly, I look at other clubs like Fernandez took over QPR where they are now. I look at Notts Forest, I look at other teams, Leeds, other teams that were big and Premier League forces once upon a time, got new chairman in, thought they were going places. Look at Coventry, for example. I mean, look at them, they've just fallen to League Two now, I think, and once upon a time they were in the 90s with Keane and Unlove and all those Huckabee, all those good players. Dublin, they were once a good team, and I just think if at least at the moment, with our current chairman, we're disappointed if we don't finish mid-table in the Premier League. For me, that is a sign of how far we have come. However, we've been promised more than that, and they were the ones that made those promises, so they have to stick to them, and the summer is the time when it is finally decided. And, you know, I will do whatever these people want me to do that think I only back the board because I'm being told, or they own my website, or they own my events, or they pay me money, or I cut their lawns and make them roast dinners, and all these other things that people seem to think the board do with me. I will come on to your show, every other show that there is, and put a sign up and say, I want the board out, they've ruined our club. I swear to you, I will do that. And I'll wait till that moment. Give me until August the 31st of 2018, and then I will decide whether I have to do that or not.
I tell you what, though, there's a key message I want to get across. And I mean, listen, we've been doing this YouTube channel for 3 or 4 months, and nobody deserves abuse to the level that I've seen some of the people be given. From some social media sites, from some fans, or from some so-called fans. You can't go on there online, or you can do what you want. Yeah, it's a free world, but do you know what? If you're not ballsy enough to come up and say it to someone's face, then don't do it over Twitter, don't do it over Facebook. And listen, we've had conversations before, we've had conversations, Dan, and the majority of people do appreciate all the work you do over at your end on your social sites, and we all appreciate it. And you're my new teletext. That's the only way I can describe it. You're my new 338 gossip section, and I'm not saying it's just gossip, but that's the best way I can describe it, because it's always been it's always been there. It's always been there, and it always will be, whether it's you, whether it's someone else. So
exactly. Yeah. And can I just say one thing, mate? Sorry to interrupt you, but I appreciate what you're saying there. But people are like, another thing that I get is, why do you leak club information? At the end of the day, what does a journalist do? What does Sky Sports do? What do all of these mediums do? I'm just lucky that I actually know people that can tell me these things. And what people don't understand a lot of the time is, I could quite easily put out a negative story, and my attention and retweets and all those things that people like me apparently look for would go through the roof. The one time I did it, which was accidental, and it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, was on my radio show, and I talked about the PIA WhatsApp group, and I don't know if you remember, and how Noble and Obiang and a few players had kicked him out of it. It got on the back page of The Sun. That was a comment, a throwaway comment on the radio, and I didn't even really think about what I was saying. It just happened to come up, and you know, the attention that brought to the site and so on. The Sullivans, when they supposedly tweeted from Marbella, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of that, they didn't, but when they supposedly tweeted from Marbella, if I just said yes, that happened, James Corden was tweeting that was on Sky Sports as well. I should have, if it had happened, I would have said, yeah, that happened. But at the end of the day, what people don't realise is that because I'm a West Ham fan, I try to put out positive news about the club, whereas the media, the Sky Sports, they call me up and want the negative stories, and I don't give it, because I'm a big West Ham fan ultimately. The day, and I want and the reason I put news out is because, like you just said, Anton, back in the day I used to call Club Talk, spend 50p a minute trying to get the gossip about who this South American wizard was that was joining West Ham,
and everyone used to think it was a sex line.
Yeah, exactly. Well, sometimes it was, but I just used to think it was West Ham. But but most of the time it was West Ham, and then I used to be the person that was, you know, you'd get the Sun, you'd read the back, you'd get the Mirror, you'd go into the news agents and read all the back pages and see what West Ham were doing. You'd go on teletext, you'd be forever refreshing the page, and it's just the modern time equivalent of that now, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dan, we've talked a lot about the board, and before we go back to the game and we round off the show, I mean, let's be honest, they don't help themselves. We've said that all along. There's been stories broke this week about a fan turning up, and we don't know what to believe at the end of the day.
I know the truth. Well, that actually,
go for it.
Basically, what happened was the fan that put the fag outside Sullivan's house. Yes, that happened. There was a miscommunication between a member of staff at the club who basically thought the order was that he was to take away the season ticket from this man, which they did actually say. So the season ticket was taken away. That Jack Sullivan realised there'd been a mistake, or one of the Sullivans did, called him up and has reimbursed the season ticket now. So they're back to square one. No, he's still got his season ticket and everything's as it was. But that's basically what happened in a nutshell.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's the bad itself.
It's just that we are the the new show, the new EastEnders. I mean, it's what else can we get? I mean, you literally want a new show on the TV, a new drama. You come and see West Ham. Join the roller coaster. That's what I say every single time a new player joins West Ham or a new manager. I say, welcome to the roller coaster, because it's going to be one ride of your life, definitely.
Yeah, definitely, mate.
So yeah, let's go back onto the Leicester game and we'll get this rounded off. X, I'm not going to ask you what you think is going to happen, or if you know anything. I'm going to actually ask you your own opinion. What do you want to see change with West Ham at the weekend?
Changes. Okay, well, first of all, I want to change from every player whoever's selected in terms of passion. I want them to, every single one of those players, to be fighting for their place and show what playing for this club means to them. And that goes to everyone that's selected. If we're talking about individual selections, I think personally I'd be looking at making a number of changes. I think you've got to do something with those three in central midfield. I don't think it's the right partnership. If it was me, I'd probably drop Kouyate and hopefully Ayew or Antonio is fit, and put Lanzini into the centre there and tell him to be creative. I would probably drop Carroll and bring in at least Cheikhou, possibly Martinez, but certainly Cheikhou for Carroll, and I'd actually drop Cresswell as well, and that's going to be slightly controversial, but I thought he was poor against Watford, and I think Mazaraku has done more to deserve his starting place than Cresswell has, and I would probably do that as well. This is not particularly thought through, and I'm kind of reacting now without thinking it through, but that is kind of in this spur of the moment, sitting in my freezing cold conservatory, what I would do at this point.
Dan, same question.
Yeah, I think we've got to ring the changes. You know, the only difference I think now, and like we said it in our review of the game that was played at the weekend, is that you can't dig Moyes out too much. He had half the team for 2 weeks. A lot of the others were off on international duty. He's had them back for a week, so he will have seen something a bit different. But I do think he's got to ring the changes somewhere. Carroll's got to be dropped for me. The same as X said, Martinez or Sakho's got to come in for him. If Antonio's fit, he comes back into the team for me. Ayew definitely comes back in if he's fit as well, because he's one of the players that's in form. It's at the back where it is the biggest concern. The defending has been woeful for the last 2 years, and that's where we need the biggest refresh. I probably would go with bringing Masuaku in and seeing what happens. If we can play free at the back and play wing backs, I think that suits Masuaku a bit more. Bring Rice in maybe to play alongside Reed, and it's going to be Ogbonna in it, unfortunately. And I know how much you like him, but that's all we've got fit at the minute, unfortunately. But he does need to ring some changes, and we just need to see a bit more from the team. Maybe because it's at home, we'll get that reaction we were hoping for against Watford.
Yeah. X, I'm not sure if you ever see the shows, but I'll just give you a bit of a rundown of my opinion. But for me, Ogbonna does not start for our team. Squad player at best. I honestly believe his spatial awareness, his awareness of the football is not that great. He as Dan pinpointed last week, he covers the ground really well, but that's just not what we need when we're a struggling team. And I feel the same about Font. I really don't see how he's been grown into a better, well, maybe he's been having some better performances, but I make the valid point that my mum, who's 72, watches the odd bit of football, turned round, seen Font make a tackle and jump up for a header, and I think Harry Kane just towered above him, and she was like, what was he doing there? She was so confused by it, and I was like, this is week in and week out. So for me, I'm desperate to see Declan Rice come in that position and play alongside Winston Reid, because I think from the games I've seen him play, apart from the odd mistake, which I don't care about, that's just football and that's what you get in your youth and you're going to learn from it, I want to see him be absolutely pushed in and start at the weekend. A bit like what happened with Reece Oxford against Arsenal, although he disappeared and it's a total frustrating thing. But I really want to see Declan Rice. And then on top of that, when I think back to Watford, I think about that player Will Hughes, who dominated the game. He's a young 21, 22 year old. Yeah, he's got experience in the Championship. Yeah, he played well, but he's had a couple of really, really bad injuries, and it was only his second start. Is that right, Dan? Second start for Watford. Yeah. And he absolutely dominated the game, and he's a youthful English player. Now, Martinez is a youthful Spanish player, but he's banging in goals at the development level. I don't care what level, he's banging in goals. So he's confident. He knows where the goal is, and I want to see that. And what makes West Ham different to other teams that are giving youth a chance? And that's what I am desperate to see. X, opinion on that?
Yeah, I second your opinion on Declan Rice. I mean, I know how determined he is to make it at West Ham and how much playing for West Ham would mean to him. It probably means a lot more than it does to Ogbonna at the end of the day. So for me, I would like to see Rice be given a chance. I agree with you on Ogbonna. I think if you'd asked me what I thought of Ogbonna like Kouyate when we were in our last season at the Boleyn, I would have said he's a quality, brilliant player. I haven't seen that same player these last couple of years. I agree. I think Rice should come in. I think you've been a little bit harsh on Fonte there, because personally I think he's been one of our better players this year. I mean, I know that's not saying much compared to how the season's gone, but if I was to think of possibly our 3 best players this year, I'd probably say Zabaleta, Fonte, and I don't know really for the third, Hernandez possibly. I'm not sure. But yes, I feel a bit harsh on Fonte, but certainly I agree with what you're saying about Ogbonna.
And there's a prime example of how we disagree, but we don't hate each other.
No, exactly. I'll still go for a drink with you, mate. I'm not gonna refuse and say, oh no, you hate Fonte. That's it for me.
So let's come round to the really difficult time, the really difficult one, and then Dan, I'm going to throw you right under the bus and give you a prediction for the weekend.
Oh God, I'm going to go with a draw. I just think we'll get more at home in front of the fans. The one thing I do want to say is I actually think, with the negative feeling around the club at the moment, I think playing on a Friday night is actually not a good thing for us. You know, everyone's been at work. Are people going to want to make the effort to go on a Friday night? I think Saturday lunchtime would have been better for our first game at home with Moisey. I just think that evening game's going to work, because there's just so many fans at the moment that just don't want to go over there. You know, you only have to watch some of the other, you know, channels and things that have been said on Twitter down in the dumps people are about it, and now they only want to go to away games now. So is it going to be a full house? That's going to be, you know, a big impact on the team. But I'm going to go with a draw. I think Leicester have got enough to score. Our defence is terrible, but maybe we'll get a bit more from the team playing in front of our own fans. So I'm going to go with a 1-1.
X.
This is the time I make myself look an idiot every single week. I'm going to go for a West Ham win, believe it or not, and I'm going to go for 2-1. I think we'll start well, we'll come out, we'll get a couple of goals, we'll be thinking, brilliant, this looks good, and then Leicester will get one. It'll be that classic West Ham, really holding on for the edge of your seats to the very minute, and I think we'll get the win. But to be honest, mate, if my West Ham predictions were accurate, we would have won the league for the last 30 years, so I wouldn't take too much on that.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm a somehow positive West Ham fan, and I've been struggling this season. But I'm gonna go with a 2-0 win. I'm gonna go with a clean sheet. God knows how. God knows where it's going to come from. But I do think it's going to come from some big changes in the team, and I think that's what's needed. I think all in all, that's what's needed. I think some of these players need to look over the back and realise that there's players there that want to play for that shirt and want to give the passion and want to show it. I do think there may be a little bit less numbers, but I don't think that's going to affect it, because under the lights, and there's going to be enough there hopefully to give hopefully we get behind the team. But I don't know, I'm worried that there's going to be a bit of a toxic atmosphere. But yeah, I mean, we're all positive. Somehow we've got to be positive. But X, I mean, we met you at the end of the Swansea game, and you know yourself, we won that game, and it was the most depressing victory I've ever seen West Ham, and I felt so disheartened and just distant from my football club, and I just couldn't explain that feeling, you know.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think that's quite what most of the fans are feeling at the moment, and it's a really horrible feeling to have. You know, I'm sitting here myself. I'm sitting here feeling almost disillusioned about the club at the moment. If it wasn't for the fact that I think you two are good blokes, I would have sacked off this show tonight, because I'll be honest with you, I'm just a little bit sick of it at the moment. You know, there's such negativity at the moment. It feels like it's not the club I grew up supporting at times. You could blame that on the chairman, possibly. I know people will say that, but there just doesn't feel like it used to feel for me. I used to be buzzing about West Ham games, like when I was, you know, even like 5 years ago, I'd be so excited about going to a West Ham game, and this Friday I'd be like, brilliant, can't wait for it, and I don't actually want to go, if I'm honest with you. I will, but I don't want to. And for me that is sad, because this club has taken up so much of my life and my thoughts and my passion and so on. For me to feel like that does upset me. I'm hoping It's just a reaction to read like social media and stuff, and I'm hoping when I actually get there on Friday, it'll be fine. But I agree with you, mate. It's a bit worrying at the moment, and hopefully this will change soon with some good performances.
Something we've been doing on our show then, X, before you go and before we all go, we give everyone 30 seconds at the end of the show just to give anything West Ham off their chest. So I'm going to throw you under the bus again, Dan, just to talk about anything West Ham for 30 seconds, whether you want to get who you want in the team, what you expect, or if you're negative or positive, bored in, bored out, whatever. So I'm going to throw you under the bus. I'm going to count you in. 3, 2, 1, go.
I don't need 30 seconds. Just hashtag balled out. That's all I need to say, mate. Like that's just how I feel at the minute. You know that I've been very negative in the texts with the boys and stuff, and that's just how I feel. I just think they're the biggest problem.
Short and sweet.
There you go.
X, I'm going to throw you under the bus, but I'm going to throw a little spanner at the works for you. I'm going to say, in your 30 seconds, just give us a little bit of something that you might know. A little bit of something. 30 seconds, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, for me, what I want to say is whatever you think, whether you're bored in, bored out, whether Moyes is the right manager, Moyes isn't the right manager, at the end of the day, it's all opinions. No one can be factually proven right at this point. It is an opinion that we can all have. No one's opinion is worth more than anyone else's because it's yours. The negativity towards each other and the infighting that I see from West Ham fans is not what West Ham fans are. You know, you might hate the board, but that doesn't mean you have to hate the person next to you that might not hate them as much. To me, we are West Ham United, we are the West Ham family, and we should always remember that and try to remain like that despite what others throw at us. And in terms of inside knowledge, I can tell you that Andre Ayew should be available for Friday. There you go.
Good man. Thank you very much. So, guys, listen, make sure you subscribe to Fan Dan Goals YouTube channel. That's Dan's channel, so make sure you go across there, subscribe. Obviously go and subscribe to the West Ham Ways YouTube channel. X, I think you guys are doing a show tomorrow night on Pheonix FM, is that right?
We are, yeah, and then it'll be available as a downloadable podcast.
Yeah, so we'll put some links in below, so make sure you go across and listen there, because I'm sure there's going to be some more news coming out of West Ham on tomorrow night. And yeah, guys, make sure you subscribe to our channel and follow our partners at Umbro on Twitter. Again, we've got some great competitions coming up, so keep your eyes peeled on that. And yeah, we are West Ham. Let's get behind the team.
Come on, you irons.